Bom, boa noite a todos. Vamos começar hoje com a palestra do professor Li-Han Huang. Eu gostaria de dizer que, infelizmente, nós não vamos dispor de serviço de tradução simultânea. Do professor Li-Han Huang. Gostaria de dizer a todos que, infelizmente, nós não vamos dispor de serviço de tradução simultânea do professor Li-Han Huang. Em português ou em inglês, e nós traduzimos. Bom, o professor, desculpem o nosso problema de conexão, o professor Li-Han Huang, então, iniciando as apresentações, ele é o líder do grupo de pesquisa em Química dos Resíduos e Microbiologia Preditiva no Serviço de Pesquisa Agrícola do USDA, que é o Departamento de Agricultura dos Estados Unidos, seria o nosso equivalente do Ministério da Agricultura. O professor Huang, o interesse de pesquisa dele atualmente é na área de desenvolver modelos e métodos computacionais avançados para microbiologia preditiva. ele está particularmente interessado em análise bayesiana e sua aplicação no controle de processos de segurança alimentar. Ele é editor científico do Journal of Food Science e editor-em-chief do Food Control. Então, nós vamos, sob demanda, a gente vai verificar com o professor se ele vai disponibilizar a apresentação mais tarde, tá? E podemos começar, vamos começar a palestra. Dr. Huang, thanks for accepting our invitation. I have just introduced you.
Thank you so much.
Now it's 7 p.m. in Brazil's time, so good evening.
Good evening, yes.
Okay, and go ahead, okay?
Okay, thank you. Let me share my screen.
Okay, thank you.
That's great. Can you see me?
Now, yes, I can see.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Weber. And I'm going to talk about today, it's about quantitative methods for microbial food safety, applications of predictive microbiology. Again, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share this topic with you. The objectives of my talk today are two. The first one is to introduce the basic concepts and application of predictive microbiology. And hopefully, this is my second objective. I hope that I can encourage some of you to work on predictive microbiology in the future, because we need a lot of good students, a lot of students with good mathematical skills, knowledge to work in this field. So there are a few topics I'd like to cover today. First of all, I hope some of you have heard what is predictive microbiology. I'm going to give a very brief introduction. And then I also want to introduce to you what's the use of predictive microbiology. And also I'm going to talk about different model types and applications, model development methods, and data analysis and tools that we have. So first of all, what is the predictive microbiology? A predictive microbiology starts in around late 1980s. It is an area of research in food microbiology, specifically in food microbiology, that applies mathematical models to describe the fate, basically the population of pathogenic or sporage microorganisms in foods undergoing complex change in temperature and environment. So we want to know how the population of microorganisms change in food. So basically, there are three components of predictive microbiology. The first one, of course, has to be food. Then has to do with the microbiology. And then we have to apply some mathematics, So this is the components of predictive microbiology. So why are we interested in predictive microbiology? What we are doing that for? First of all, for a food product such as whatever cheese, we want to know how many microorganisms in the food at any given time. If they are over a certain limit, because we want to know the shelf life of it, it is to ensure the minimum acceptable quality. And there's a lot of small companies or big companies can use predictive modeling to do this. And then we also want to know, we use predictive microbiology in food safety control. We want to know if a food is safe to consume. So from a product standpoint of view, and also from food processing standpoint of view, we want to know how effective a process, intervention process is. How if we cook a food product or use high pressure treatment to treat the product, if we can kill enough microorganisms in the food to ensure safety and shelf life. So of course, the people may ask, why do you want to do this kind of study? Of course, there are gold standards already in the accepted all over the world, accepted by people all over the world. Then you can go to microbiology laboratory to do a testing and to know how many microorganisms and what they are. Okay, this is very good. This is the best methodology that we have at the moment. However, if you want to use the laboratory testing, they are very time consuming. You will not be able to know it right away. But when you need to make a real-time decision or a quick decision, you want to tell people if it is good, it's safe or not, safe to eat or not, then it becomes a trouble. We need much faster decision decision making. So we need a faster tool. This is where predictive microbiology comes into application. If a microbiologist want to know how bacteria grow and survive in a food system without going to the lab, I don't want to go to laboratory to do testing. Modeling may help. We can do modeling. One can use mathematical model to do just that. We can to make a prediction, and it cannot completely, modeling cannot completely replace laboratory testing. It's not the best way, but we can say that after so many years of development since 1980s, it is reasonably accurate. It's good enough, and then we can use this predictive modeling for shelf life prediction and risk assessment. It has been used in these applications. So the building blocks of predictive microbiology, of course, first is food. There's no food, we don't talk about food predictive microbiology. Then we have to worry about microorganisms. What are the microorganisms you want to investigate? And of course, mathematics and mathematical models. We are talking about some statistics, some computer simulation, and this is the components of predictive microbiology, building blocks of predictive microbiology, all surround this food item, and then its relationship to microbiology, and then how we use mathematics to predict the microorganism, the population of it in the food. Then we call it predictive microbiology. If you think about it, many of us are very, very familiar with predictive microbiology. It's not too new. Actually, predictive microbiology makes animal processing a science, not an art. You know, more than 100 years ago, food scientists and food engineers, we know to study the forefathers of modern food microbiology. They study the thermal processing. They know they come up with D value and Z value, and then they find a way to integrate the thermal processing curve. This is called the general method. And then from this integrated area, we will be able to know the lethality, how many spores of Clostridium botulinum have been killed by a thermal process. So predictive microbiology, before we have this term of predictive microbiology, we have been using the methodology of it, just we did not have the term yet, did not create the name of it. But what we are talking about, it is how microorganisms grow, how we grow. But if you want to examine like E. coli or Listeria monocytogenes, Salmonella in a food product, how they change in population as a function of time. We know that from microbiology 101, if you put some microorganisms in a food, it will usually go through 3 phases. The first phase is called lag phase. And then within this phase, nothing changed. The population remained the same. After the lag phase, the population increased to double every few while, like every few hours, every few minutes. So this is called exponential growth phase. And then by the time it have enough population in the food, it will go to the stationary phase. And then after the stationary phase, then the population will not change for a while. And then after that, we experience a decline phase. But we are not interested in this phase, called this decline phase, because by the time bacteria go through this stationary phase, food is usually rotten beyond consumption. So nobody is looking at this phase anymore. So we want to know if we can control the food product, the microorganisms in the lag phase. But if we can control the growth rate to reduce the growth rate, and then make it grow very slowly, and then it is good for us. And we hope that our food product never reach the stationary phase. And this is about the shelf life prediction. So after we study, although the methodology of predictive microbiology was used a long time before we have the term of predictive microbiology, because the nature of bacterial growth is more complicated than thermal processing. So it took up a lot of another 60 or 80 years before this, another 80 years, I think 80 years, before this predictive microbiology came back into life. So we know that microorganism grows in it's a very complex situation than thermal processing. So we have, if you're seeing a microorganism in the food, you have a minimum growth temperature, if you have an optimum growth temperature, and you have a maximum growth temperature. All these parameters make the predictive microbiology more complex than the just thermal processing. So now, okay, now let me move into about the users of the different perspective of predictive microbiology. There are two perspectives of predictive microbiology. The first perspective is the end user. A lot of people in the food industry or regulatory agency, they do not need to know the details about the models or methodology. They just want to use the model to make prediction. And on the other side, our perspective is the people like us. We are working on, we are the developers. We are someone that works to develop these models. So who comes first? Of course, we need this part. We have to investigate how bacteria grow, how bacteria survive in order to produce models for the end user. So I'm going to talk about the second aspect of this predictive microbiology. I can say that we need more people to work on this area, which that's why I encourage people, the students who are good in mathematics, try to get into this area of research. So predictive microbiology can be defined as two kinds of problem. One is end user perspective is called forward problem. A forward problem is just like you have an equation, you have an x, you can y, and then you have an x, and then you know y, and there's an equation. So I give you this equation, I give you x, you can make a prediction. This is like food industry, end user, or the regulatory agency. However, we are the developers of predictive microbiology. So we are researching an inverse problem, developers. That means that I know there's f equals to x a and b, but I don't know x. I don't know a. I don't know b. So I need to do some experiment by observing x, y changes with x. So do some experiment, and then we get this curve, and then we develop this model. F equals to f, x, a, and b. A and b are coefficient. Then the model can be used later if we validate the models, and we call this kind of problem inverse problem. And we are working primarily in this area, and it is a lot of work, a lot of people to work, and a lot of good talented people to work in this area. So in predictive modeling, there are different types of models we know, and we divide that into primarily three different kinds of it. First of all, it's called primary model. The primary model means that the variable is mostly a function of time. So we do the isosomal curves, like isosomal growth curve, isosomal survival curves. And we want to know like growth rate and neck time if this bacteria grows. And we want to know D value if it is thermal processing. And then we want to have another type of model. It's called secondary model. That, for example, using temperature as example, we want to know the growth rate as a function of time. We want to evaluate how temperature affects the neck time. We know that if the temperature is lower, the lag time is longer. And the growth rate is lower too. If the temperature is higher, near the optimum temperature range, then the lag phase is very short, and the growth rate is very, very large. So bacteria grows very fast. So we want to know how the temperature affects the growth rate and the lag time. And then, for example, if you want to do like a thermal processing, we want to know how the temperature affects the D value, and then in order to get this Z value. So once we have this primary and secondary model, we combine this primary and secondary model in a computer simulation model or Excel spreadsheet. We call it tertiary model. And this is the model you can use to make prediction, just like the general method in thermal processing. So this is a growth curve, a primary growth curve look like. So we have, this is time under isothermal constant temperature condition, this time, and this is the bacterial count. So this is the neck time, this is the growth rate, and this is the maximum cell density we want to know. So there are different kinds of isothermal models available now since 1980s, late 1980s and 90s. So we have like what we call that empirical model, like Gomper's model. We have Barani model. We have this Huang model, and we have Buchanan's three-phase or trilinear model. With all these models, just like this, they can use to describe the shape of bacterial growth curve. For primary model, for inverse analysis, that people model, but we are people who want to develop models. We are interested in three fundamental questions of a growth curve. How long is the lag phase? How fast can a microorganism grow, like growth rate? And what is the maximum cell density? We want to know how much the bacteria can grow to the most of the maximum capacity in a food system. So this is a survival curve for inactivation. For example, you have this time, this bacterial counts, and you can linear curve, and Weibull curve, and Gomper's model. So we want to find some mathematical equations that can describe the shape of the microbial population in a food. So for the primary models for inactivation, we are interested in answering one question from the survival curve: how fast does a microorganism die off under a condition? If you use thermal processing, we want to know the D value. Okay. Again, we are looking at this equation again, this picture again. Secondary model. Secondary model, a primary model is usually obtained under constant conditions, like constant temperature. Like a D value, we always say a D value of a certain temperature, D value 90, D value 100, and D value 121. And then for the primary growth model, also the growth rate at certain constant temperature. So after we have all these parameters like growth rate and lag time or D value, we want to get into another question, which is what is the relationship between rate and temperature? I use temperature as an example because it's very easy to demonstrate. And what are the maximum optimum growth temperature of a microorganism in the food? So in reality, we want to determine where they are from our experimental observations. And then we want to use a mathematical model to describe that. And for growth rate, we want to know what is the optimum growth rate at this optimum temperature. Traditionally, historically, and then the model are developed in 3 steps. So the first step, we have to do a lot of experiment in the primary model to observe the primary model, to collect a lot of isothermal curves at different conditions. And then after we examine like a growth rate at 10 degrees C, 25 degrees C, or 30 degrees C, or 50 degrees C, we want to see the whole spectrum and within the whole range. And then we develop a primary model to describe, we use primary to describe the bacterial growth under these isothermal conditions, each constant temperature conditions. And then we have the growth rate, for example. This is the growth rate. And then we get into the secondary phase to develop a secondary model. And we know in that different growth rate, and we want to know how temperature affected. So this is another, we're using another equation called mu equal to G sub T. So this equation shows that temperature will affect the growth rate at different temperature. And then once we identify the primary model and then we want to identify the secondary model. Then we combine two of them together and to make a prediction. And the inverse problem now becomes a forward problem. So this is the dividing line. We need a lot of people in this area of research because we have so many food products, so many microorganisms, so many conditions to investigate. Once we develop models and we organize models, we formulate the models so that the food industry or regulatory agency can use the model to make predictions, to know that, can tell the consumers, no, food cannot be consumed after a certain period of time. It's really exceed the maximum limit of the quantity, for example. So there are a few techniques we can use for data analysis in the inverse problem or model development. Most of the time we are looking at linear regression. So we are looking at if you remember the thermal processing, the D value, how we get D value and Z value, and then those methodology we used in the thermal processing, we rely on linear regression. But because of material growth in food system is non-linear, so we primarily rely on this nonlinear regression in statistics to develop all those parameters. Typical is that these are typical inverse problems. Inverse meaning that we want to extract information from the experimental observations to identify the kinetic parameters of the models. Okay. In the past, we have many commercial free or free data analysis tools, statistics tools. If you're in university, you may have SAS, you may have this Mathematica, you may have MATLAB and JUMP or R. All different kinds of models. They can the modeling tools can be used for data analysis. But these are tools, commercial or data analysis, so this statistical or math tools are very, very powerful, and they are used in scientific research and education, and or R&D in the industry to make very powerful research like programs. All of them require some product-specific programming. For example, MATLAB or SAS or R, you need to know how to program them. All of them are not user-friendly. If you are not in a graduate school, you may not be able to learn how to use it. And then there's a lot of learning and training, how to write the program, how to write, even for SAS, like R. There's a lot of learning to do. And most are very expensive. So, with a few exceptions of free software, they are very, very expensive. And most importantly, they are difficult to learn and use for most of our food science students, and microbiologists. So it is very challenging for a lot of graduate students, even in the United States, in other countries. Another aspects of when we ask food microbiologists and food scientists to work on predictive microbiology, people always argue that mathematics is too hard, very difficult to learn. And then people may think that, okay, if I learn something and I don't know which model to use, which model to choose, which one is better. And then also, people sometimes in other countries, is I don't have a model program to use to do it. The SAS and MATLAB is beyond the reach of a lot of students in other countries. And then a lot of people will come to me, they say, I don't know how to program. They just don't know how to do it. And added to that, it is called mathematical anxiety for a lot of these food science students and food science students or biology students. A lot of the other thing when we're doing this predictive microbiology research is that there are some specific problems difficulties to linear regression. All linear regression requires some initial guess values, And then a lot of people contacted me. They have a perfect growth curve, and they have a perfect program. They just cannot get the result from the curve. And it is because improper initial guess values may not help in finding solutions. The problem has to converge. If you're starting from the wrong place, you will not be able to do it. And I found out, if you can see the curve, and in the computer, and show you how to do it, then a lot of people will be interested in doing predictive microbiology. So this is why I developed this product called USDA Integrated Pathogen Modeling Program. So if you have not heard of this product, just go to internet to search for this term called USDA Integrated Pathogen Modeling Program, or IPMP. If you Google it, you'll find it. And then it's in use by a lot of people. And it should come up from the USDA, from our website. And then it is a comprehensive data analysis tool for predictive modeling and predictive microbiology research. It's very intelligent. It has the interactive graphical user interfaces, and then I built into this program. So it's very easy to use, and I can show you how to do this in this presentation. So if you can go to internet, if you have access to internet, and then the IPMP is located in a USDA secure USDA website, and then you don't need to remember all this. Just Google USDA IPMP 2013, and then you will find a package. Everything put in one file together. It has a tutorial, have download instructions. As it is compiled, so it has been put together in one piece, and then you can run Windows 32 or 64-bits, and then from Vista to 95, the newest model, Windows Office, you can use it. Windows operating system, you can use it. You don't have to install it. You can put it in your jump drive. You can run from your jump drive. So it is very easy to use. And then it is based on modern object-oriented programming. It has very advanced scientific computing libraries, and has modern graphical user interfaces. It shows you just like Excel. If you know how to use Excel, you should be able to run it. And then it is for Windows only. And although it can run under Mac, because it is cross-platform, but most of us use Windows system anyhow. So I stopped developing for Mac. It has about 23 or 24 mathematical models, and the accuracy of the results are identical or equivalent to SAS or R. These are two standard tools, statistical packages we have. So this is the how IPMP look like if you open it, and then if you look at it, it's just like Excel, right? So, and then it has 4 windows. This is data entry window, and then this is a plot window. So you copy your data to this place, to this area, and then if you submit, and then it will plot for you. It will show up the curve for you, and then you just pick and choose the models here, and then everything it will done automatically by the system for you. So it look and feel just like any Excel or Windows software. So they have different kinds of model. Each one have different options in there. Primary model, these are primary model, and then primary model, and then secondary model. So everything is in there. Everything is built inside. So you can do that. So for example, this growth curve, there's no lag phase. There are some bacteria are very, very good in food. They can go right away without going lag phase. We have a model built in there. And then you have this kind of lag phase and experimental phase. Sometimes we are not interested. Remember, we are not interested in stationary phase because they are too much for food to consume, for food to be good. So if you have this kind of curve, we can analyze. And of course, all these 3 phases, if you have a full growth curve, we can analyze this kind of curve. And all different kinds of survival curves we can analyze. Okay, and then all kinds of secondary curve, like temperature, and then the growth rate, and then we want to find out minimum, optimum, and maximum temperature. Everything it can be done. So this is the curve look like, the software look like. So you enter your data here and you submit. When you submit the data, it automatically plot for you. So this is the data look like. So this is raw data, and then this computer will give you an initial guess. So what happens is that for a lot of people in the world, when they do the nonlinear regression, when the initial guess is wrong, you will not be able to get a result. So this program will produce a curve for you just to get to show you and the curve look like, and then you just come here to change the initial guess, and then it will produce. You can adjust this slider, and then to make a curve similar to this your observation, laboratory observation. Okay, and then you will get a perfect curve for you after it's finished. So everything is done by hand, by computer, by itself. You just need to enter the data, submit the data, adjust the value, and select the model, adjust value, and then go ahead. So this is how the result look like. So everything you need to generate a model, a parameter, are listed here. Everything, all important statistical parameters, criteria are listed in this report. And this is the report window. After that, this is a report. Remember, this is a report area. Report. In this corner, everything will be done over here. So everything will be done automatically for you. So what happens now? So this is the examples. Let me give you a few examples of data fitting and compare with other statistical tools. This is the observation, and then this is the model fitting model curve, and these are low lag phase. These are the real growth curve, and these are the models. And you can compare different models at the same time. So these are different growth curves, different growth models. These are real curves, real observation. These are data points, and then you want to fit this curve using the computer model, and you can to compare all the different kinds of models together within this one package. Everything will be done for you. So this survival curve, for like this curve like that, you can use linear curve, you can use a complex curve, you can use a whiteboard model to analyze the curves. And this is effect of temperature. So these are the observations. That's our observation. And we want to know the maximum temperature, minimum temperature, and then this optimum temperature, how the shape look like in the system. So in the real world. So you can generate these parameters using this IPMP automatically. So this is another different type of model. These are also the raw data we observe from laboratory. This is growth rate. This temperature. This is called secondary model. So effect of temperature on growth rate. We have different models in the IPMP built in there automatically. So you just need to enter the data and get a result. So what happens? The performance of IPMP, we compare that with two standard statistical packages, SAS and R. They are almost identical. The result just the same. This is result from R, this result from IPMP. The result just identical, almost the same. So the results for IPMP just as good as SAS, as R, or SAS. So with this IPMP, the data analysis, very complex data analysis, just becomes a very simple data entry. As long as you know how to enter data, as long as you know how to choose model that suit the data, that look like your data, and then use graphical user interfaces to adjust the initial parameters for faster, almost guarantee conversion. You almost guarantee you to get a result. All data analysis and calculation are done behind the scene. Everything is built into the program. You don't have to do anything. And it is very fast, and it is very, very accurate. So you can compare different models for the same set of data to choose which model is the best for you. So IPMP has significantly lowered the bar for those who want to work on predictive modeling. So people cannot say that I'm not good in mathematics anymore. Okay, you are not, if you really think you're not good in mathematics, but if you can know how to use IPMP, you can start working in predictive microbiology. Of course, we have more complex, we have more advanced research now, but this is the entry point. You can get you interested into predictive microbiology, and this concludes my talk. And I would like to have to answer questions if you have. Thank you so much, Dr. Weber. I'm done. So I conclude my talk. So if you have any question, please feel free to ask.
Thank you, Lihan, for your interesting lecture. We have some time for a few questions.
Yes.
João Victor Sartor is asking if it's more advantageous to look for new models or to evaluate the results obtained from the classical models, like your model, Gompert's model. What do you think?
I think if from some scientific curiosity standpoint of view, for advance of science standpoint of view, we always look at the best, the even better models. So if you have a good model you want to present, go for it. Because this is how we advance science. So if you want, definitely go ahead.
Okay. I have a question. Let's say that during food processing, there are many events that take place. Okay, yes. So the temperature fluctuates. There is the probability of growth and yes. inactivation, cross-contamination.
Yeah.
To your experience, does food industry they use these models, how they deal with such many events that
okay, so
you cannot
okay, let's simplify the problem. So if you look at a company, you may think a lot of factors like a pH, water activity, and many ingredients may affect the product. But once the product is made, everything is fixed, everything remains the same. So temperature becomes the most critical factor affecting bacterial growth and survival. Because if you think about it, ground beef or cheese, they are already done. They don't want to change the formula. If you want to help the food industry, look at temperature is the best way to look at it. But if we want to look at the other application, want to control how microorganisms grow in research to develop strategies for them to use, then we consider different combinations, right? How water activity and pH affect the final product. But once the product is out of the factory, temperature becomes the most critical factor, in my opinion. And then we talk about supply chain control. Maintain the temperature in the supply chain to prevent the growth of microorganisms or to estimate how microorganisms grow in food. Does it make sense?
Okay. We just another question. Okay, there, Alexandre Paulino is asking, can we apply these models developed for the microorganism growth in the control of microorganisms in polymeric solid support used for protein enzymes immobilization?
I think so. It depending on. I never tried that, but you can get the download the software and get a curve and analyze it. So it's very easy to use. So I think so.
Okay. Daniel Angelo Long is asking for you to explain for us what kind of caution the user should have to use the IPMP to have good predictions.
That's a good question. It is determined by the quality of your data. If your data quality, when you do experiment, the data quality is high, then it's okay, and then you can use any model of it. And if you Daniel, I think Daniel is working on this dynamic methodology now. I'm working on dynamic methodology now. So it's all about the quality of your scientific observation. When you do a good experiment, the data have good quality control, and then the model is accurate. The IPMP just analyze the data that you have. If you, for example, have a problem with the incubator, the prediction will be wrong. It's all determined by the quality of your data.
Okay, let's see. We have available in the literature many models. Okay,
Yeah.
Plenty of models. And do you believe that food industry must focus on specific models? So they should test the models for, let's just say, for Salmonella, and take one specific model to Salmonella, validate it with their data, and use it.
Yes,
always.
I agree. Always. And then if it, to me, after like so many years, all the primary model and secondary model, their performance are almost the same. They're almost the same. So just pick and choose, and then you use a primary model, and then use a secondary model, and then combine, and you validate that using your data, and then you can use. There are not much difference in the performance of the model, and to me, it's just like preference. If you prefer to use one model over primary model, or prefer primary model over one model, or conference model, that way, no big difference. After all,
it's almost here arbitrary, the choice.
Arbitrary, yes. Arbitrary, yes.
Okay. Let's just see if there is a further question.
After so many years.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks again for accepting our invitation.
Thank you so much.
It was a very interesting lecture.
Thank you.
Okay, and take care.
All right. Thank you. See you next time. Yeah. See you next time. Yeah. Bye. Now. Yep.
Bom, pessoal, obrigado a todos que participaram e contribuíram, né? Amanhã tem uma palestra do professor Antônio Fernandes de Carvalho, da Universidade Federal de Viçosa, né? Sobre Nova Leite. Então, estão todos convidados, tá? E boa noite a todos. Obrigado pela presença.